Hi, and welcome to Learn Law for All podcast. Today we are here with Dr. Ellie Izzo. Hi.
Hi, Launi. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me.
So Dr. Izzo is a mental health professional. She has worked in vicarious trauma, a lot of different areas. She has written a few books, which we're going to link the links down here. But she's most known for her novel approach to managing emotions, improving decision-making. She co-founded the Vicarious Trauma Institute, the Collaborative Divorce Institute. She's known for her rapid advance process. There's so much about her. She's written several books: Secondhand Shock, The Bridge to I Am, the Just Stop series, which I think is at 3 books.
Yeah.
And so she's great. And she's going to be talking to us today about the art of listening, which we just did a CLE on this, and it was incredible. I was so enthralled in the CLE that I didn't even take notes on it because I was just too busy listening, which I guess was a good thing since we were doing it on listening. So
that's right.
So yeah, it was really a great CLE. I recommend it. It's an ethics CLE, but as usual, this podcast is for informational purposes only. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship with the listener and me, nor does it create a doctor-patient relationship with Dr. Izzo and the listener. This, again, is for informational purposes only. It's just meant to give general information, and I'm only licensed in Arizona, so keep all that in mind as you listen. Dr. Izzo, we talked about some questions that I wanted to ask you. Again, thank you so much for being here, but let's talk about listening. So which I thought this was very interesting, how do emotions affect someone's ability to listen?
Well, when people are in a legal situation and or in let's say, for example, a divorce case or a conflict of any kind, it could be a legal situation, and many of the people who take your courses that you offer are legal professionals, and the ancillary, the collateral professionals that work with them. But when people are in a high stress situation or a high conflict situation, they experience some very intense negative emotions. And physiologically, this affects our brain and our body, every cell of our body. It becomes a molecular thing. And there's our negative emotions end up ultimately coursing through the right side of our brain and our cerebral cortex. And the rational part of our brain, which is in the left hemisphere, the left brain, gets flooded by the transfer of these negative emotions. And so the ability to stay rational, present, verbal, linear, diminishes with the flooding of negative emotions across to the left-hand part of the brain. So learning the art of listening and keeping your peace, your sense of peace while you're hearing information, some of it which may not make you happy, some of it which may trigger your emotional state, becoming a good listener really requires the ability to control the negative emotions that are associated with the subject.
Now, I know we didn't talk about this. We didn't talk about it in the CLE because, again, I was just so busy listening. But I wonder, are there any tips that you can give attorneys or really anyone to help someone who's maybe angry, kind of bring it in so that they can listen?
Yes. So one of the first commandments of intense negative emotions is anger is always about the one who feels it. So the fact that opposing counsel is giving you a hard time, that your ex-husband won't let you stay in the house, whatever the issue, someone's suing you because your car rear-ended them, whatever the situation may be, you feel angry about it. That's fine. It's your anger, darn it. You get to have it. However, your anger is your responsibility. That opposing counsel is rude, that's about him or her. you're angry about it, that part's about you. If your ex is being mean, rude, unkind, that's about him. Your anger about it is about you. So being able to identify that you're in a feeling state and you're responsible for what you feel. It's okay that you feel it, but you're responsible for it. Now really helps you to become a better listener, because your brain isn't in the mindset of blaming, accusing, or judging the other person who's talking to you. Your mind is able to receive what the person is saying because you have the ability to navigate. You're upset about what they're saying and you're ready to do that.
So if, say, opposing counsel is really kind of acting crazy and it feels like I'm not being heard, do I just stop communicating at that time and say, let's do it another time when it's, it's not so crazy? I mean, I don't.
Well, that's a beautiful question. That is a perfect question you've asked me, because the question you've asked me is really about how do I set boundaries when someone, is arrogant, or, they're coming on strong or whatever. So there's a little line I like to use that I coach people, professionals, to say, I'm having a reaction and I need to take a risk with you. I can see that you're very passionate about this issue, and I think you're coming across very angrily. And I'm noticing with your anger, it's hard for me to stay present to hear what you're saying. I really want to hear what you're saying. It's important to me. So I'm requesting you take it down a little bit, so I'm able to stand here and totally hear, totally listen to what it is you want to tell me.
I love that so much. I mean, I'm glad I'm not litigating anymore. Probably don't need to use it very often, but I love that so much. I wish that I had done this with you earlier. So let's talk about the actual steps in listening. Like, are there steps?
Yes, there are. So the when you're going to be the listener in a communication and someone else is going to be the speaker, you're taking the responsibility of listening. That means I'm making a commitment to open my mind to what you have to say. I may see it differently, but I want to make sure I hear what you have to say. So the first step would be attending to the person, listening to everything they say. And what a lot of humans do, they start to immediately create their retort, their rebuttal. And now their ability to listen to the content is already starting to diminish. Don't do that. Stay in position one. I'm just attending to what you have to say. Step two, acknowledge. You then repeat what you heard the person say. After you repeat it, you say, did I get that right? The communicator will either say yay or nay. If they say yay, then you can go to the next step and say, is there more? If they say, no, you didn't get it right, or you didn't get it all, you have to go back to step number one and be attentive again and say, okay, tell me again. And so you go back and forth between attending and acknowledging till the speaker tells you, yes, you got it right. And then you can, once you've done that a bunch of times and you got the whole communication, you can summarize what you heard the person say. That's the third step. And then the last step is you ask now if it's okay for you to respond to it, where now you're going to give your perspective and your point of view. But notice, before you come back with your point of view, there's 4 or 5 other steps you're supposed to be taking prior to that. A lot of times people want to give their point of view right after step one. That's not listening.
So just like, I would have a hard time picturing that in like a back and forth with an opposing counsel. Like I don't, it seems like those steps would be, well, I think it'd be one-sided probably, unless everybody watches this and your CLE. I think that's probably not the normal way, right, that people communicate. Though it's
when we coach them, we help them to practice this method, and then you get to do it more fluidly, more quickly, and more adeptly. But I think
that was my question. I think it sort of flows more afterwards, right?
So once you get adept at it, you'll say something like, I really want to hear what it is you have to say. So please tell me what it is, and then I'm going to repeat it to you just to make sure I got it right. Is that okay? And then they'll say it, and then you can give them a synopsis. So you think this, this, and this. Did I get that right? Yes. Oh, okay. Well, this is the way I see it. I respect what you're telling me. I happen to see it a little bit differently. So now what you've done is you've made an amalgam of those 4 or 5 steps. It has a lot more fluidity to it, but it's hard to get there if you don't practice each individual step on your own on the front end.
Yeah, I think that that's great advice. I think even, you know, besides just in the professional realm, clearly for personal relationships where, you know, especially with spouses, sometimes that can, you know, you hear what you want to hear oftentimes, or
You bet.
you hear what you're thinking that they said when they didn't say anything like that.
That's right.
Your definition of a word is different, or
Right. So just checking. So you're really upset with me that I didn't pay the electric bill last month. Did I get that right? Yeah, you did. Okay. Well, I can respect the fact that you're pissed off about that. You know, I spaced it out. I've been very anxious and I completely forgot. I'll pay it tonight. Is that okay?
You know what I love about that? That's something that I've always thought was a great idea that I try and do. Look, if you screw up, admit that you screwed up, because it stops the fight, right? I mean, why? I used to say this about Clinton back in the day. It's like, just admit it and it'll go away, right? The whole kick the boodle will go away. Just admit you screwed up and you're done.
I'm telling you, back in the day when I was seeing too many clients, way too many clients, there were sometimes I double booked myself. And I would open up the door to the waiting room and there'd be 3 people sitting in the chair in the waiting room. What else could I do? I would look at them and go, wow, did I screw up? I am so sorry. Your time is valuable. Let me try to make this up to you and we'll work it out. And then when I would present it that way, will you forgive me? I'm so sorry. Oh, don't worry about it. I would always get a very forgiving response from people and a very patient response from people. Yeah, wow, I really screwed up.
Yeah, 100%. When you take responsibility for your junk, your accents, your screw ups, it just disappears. So what are they going to keep saying you screwed up and you're going to keep going? Yeah, I know I did. Right? I mean, I didn't want to screw up. I made an error. I'm not perfect. I apologize profusely. This is 100% my fault.
Right.
Then they can't say anything else.
What's so good about practicing something like that is the person is practicing taking responsibility. And once you practice taking responsibility, you immediately become a better listener, a better speaker, and you're more present all the way around. And you become a more confident person because you know you're not perfect and you don't have to be defensive half the time.
Right. You know, when you, it's interesting. This is kind of one of the things I teach my clients is the mama bear thing. You know, if you go in defending like a mama bear, nobody wants to get involved with that. People are going to get defensive. They're not going to want to protect you. They're not going to want to necessarily be kind to you. But if you go in as like an injured baby bear, you know, and you're apologetic and you're sorry, everybody wants to come to your rescue. Everybody is like, well, that's okay. No big deal. Yeah, it happens to all of us.
Yes, yes. And the rare time that someone wants to keep pounding on you verbally about it, and then you can set a boundary. Okay, clearly I'm not in a place where you're ready to forgive me for my mistake. Let's take a time out. And when you feel like you're ready to forgive, we can pick this up again.
No, that's a great idea. So do you have any like tips for legal professionals that they can do to kind of keep in mind to keep clients and colleagues sort of better listeners?
Oh, yeah, well, I have a couple. The first tip is to be more present for their agenda, even though you really want them and need them to be present for what you need for them to do. Give them the chance to be heard. So it doesn't mean sitting there for an hour while they go on and on. just ask them, what's on your mind? Is there something you need to tell me? And so start out by being a good listener, but don't get too deeply into it. So, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm really so stressed out. This happened, that happened. Then you repeat, wow, you've really got a lot on your plate. It's been difficult for you to juggle all this stuff. I really respect the fact that you're sitting here today with all you have going on. That person now feels seen, heard, acknowledged. They're going to be so much more compliant for how you need for them to proceed so you can both succeed on their behalf.
Oh my God, that's great. Again, more great advice. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm was really thankful that you were willing to do the CLE and this podcast. I think it's great information. Something I wish I might have been better at a long time ago too. I think I'm learning.
I think you're a pretty good listener.
but this I think that this is going to be helpful to everyone. So thank you so much. And for everyone out there listening, check out our Learn Law for All website. She has the full 1 hour educational video on that. So thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you, Launi. Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.